Hi everyone, it is week 3 of Sci-fi September, and today we're going to talk about my personal favourite science fiction book series, The Expanse, by James S.A. Corey. This series has 9 novels, 1 short story collection, and a TV series with 6 seasons. The 9 books fit really well into groups of 3. You can think of it like a trilogy of trilogies, although that's not official or anything. The series is now completely finished, so there's no better time to get started on this one. Now heads up, I'm a bit biased today. I love this series. I adore it so much, and that's why this is a hopelessly long video today. But I'm still going to try and be objective and unbiased, because we want to figure out if this series is good for you. Don't just read what I like. I don't ever want to pressure people to read my taste in books. So please, be honest about your taste in books. Read what you like, and be proud of what type of books you like to read. Now let's see if The Expanse is the right choice for you. We are right smack in the middle of our monthly theme of Sci-Fi September, and stick to the end for an announcement about what is coming up next month. But now on to The Expanse. Hundreds of years in Earth's future, the invention of the Epstein drive has allowed for space travel to become easier than ever. It didn't give us the stars, but it did give us the planets. Now humanity has grown beyond Earth and has civilized every inhabitable body in the solar system. So all the planets except the gas giants, dozens of moons, and even the asteroid belt. Yet all of these different locations has kind of divided humanity. Tensions are rising between the uber-wealthy inner planets of Earth and Mars, and those in the asteroid belt and the outer moons who are desperately struggling to survive with limited resources. Every time Earth raises the price of basic necessities like air and water, the Outer Rim people run the risk of death or starvation. In the midst of this galactic powder keg, a rich Earth girl has just gone missing. Detective Miller is a belter from the asteroid belt, and he is assigned to find her. Miller starts finding clues for a greater, wider conspiracy. Meanwhile, James Holden is a former UN Navy officer. He's currently working on a ship that transports ice out to the outer planets. Holden and his crew accidentally come across a military action that they were never meant to see. He has to urgently piece together what is going on in this conflict if he has any hope of escaping alive. Both Detective Miller and James Holden are seeing different sides to the same puzzle. The only question is, can they solve it in time before the true danger is revealed? Now, I've mentioned this detail before during Sci-Fi September, but in science fiction, the technology is the magic. In the same way that you can have a hard magic system or a soft magic system, you can also have hard or soft science and technology. And just to recap, soft magic is when you don't really have any hard rules and you can kind of do whatever you want without limits. It's all airy-fairy, wishy-washy,
wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Hard magic is an exact and precise art, where you've got specific rules and limitations. Now, both hard and soft magic systems affect the story in different ways. So what type of magic do we have in The Expanse and the technology here? Is it hard or soft? Well, we have both. Think of it like 2 types of magic system, 2 different types of technology. The hard science in The Expanse is all about space travel and space living. So things like the amount of time it takes for a ship to travel a certain distance, or how much fuel it will take. There is legitimate rocket science going on here, and that's more complicated than brain surgery.
This isn't rocket science, it's brain surgery.
There is a lot of mathematics that are applied to understanding g-forces and inertia in regards to space travel. So, in The Expanse, one of my favorite details is the structure of the spaceships. The floor of these ships is not on the bottom, it's on the side. You can see from my model here. Yes, this is M-Bot from Skyward from the Brando Sando collection, and yes, this is Trunks from Dragon Ball Z from a Happy Meal I bought in Osaka, Japan. Anyway, so normally in movies, the floor is the bottom of the ship, so the people will stand like that. But in The Expanse, when you are driving forward, the inertia is pushing you backwards, so back this way. So the floor in The Expanse is like this. So ships are actually kind of built on the side, so you stand up, so when you move in the direction of travel, it's pushing you down. It creates a gravity effect in the downward direction. So the interior of the ships are built sideways. The Expanse is just filled with a whole bunch of fun details like that. Another great example is from the short story, The Butcher of Anderson Station. Very slight spoilers here, but in the story, a tax collector has just added a 3% surcharge to all of his products, and the Belters literally riot and murder the guy. Now, it turns out the 3% surcharge, it means that their money and resources wouldn't go far enough. They would literally run out of air 2 days before the next shipment arrived. So a 3% charge would be devastating for the whole community. And that's how much forethought the writers have put into space living. So that's the hard science. Now, as for the soft science, it's a bit tricky here. I want to avoid spoilers because there are a lot of big revelations in this series. So I'll be a little vague, but put it this way, the soft science comes from new technology. So all the hard stuff is the stuff that we've had established for a little while and we're familiar with, all the characters are. Soft magic is new stuff that's emerging. So the new technology is mysterious, wondrous, and oftentimes
scary beyond all reason.
This stuff is crazy. You see it as early as the prologue of the very first book. It is in the opening scene, but it keeps getting bigger and weirder and scarier all through the series. I won't say any more because I'm trying really hard to avoid any sort of spoilers, but it was a real joy reading this series and seeing two types of magic systems working at odds with each other. It creates an incredibly tense story. I mean, imagine you've got magic on one side of a battle that is totally understandable, and then all the weird stuff on the other side that's completely unpredictable. It's very exciting. I read a lot of big series because I love long series. You might have noticed this about me already. So I rarely read standalone books. I just like long stories. Now here's something I've learned from reading lots of long book series. You've got to shake up the story after a while. Long series that don't go through any sort of dramatic period of change become boring and lose their quality a little bit. A few examples: in The Wheel of Time, its formula is shaken up a couple of times. Like in book 4, the series shifts from the early quest novel type to more military campaigns. Then we have another big shake-up at the end of book 6. Book 6 literally ends with the line, "and the world was changed forever." So big shake-ups. Another example is in the Dresden Files. There are a few big dramatic reveals, but book 12 is the real shake-up. It's literally called Changes, because so much changes here. But other really long series, like Raymond Feist's 30-book Rift War cycle, and Terry Brooks's Shannara series, that has, I think, 32 novels, neither of them have a big shake-up. They have a couple of minor changes, but nothing that dramatically shifts it, so they become a little bit more boring. I am very much generalizing here, but you get the point. Now, The Expanse, on the other hand, goes through multiple big shakeups to the series. Each shakeup dramatically changes the direction of the story and breaks the established formula of the previous books. And I don't want to get too spoilery, but I would argue that books 3, 5, and 7 have a big shakeup event. As much as I would love to talk about each of those in new ways, I just don't want to spoil anything. There's a lot of really big earth-shattering revelations, and I want to leave them all unsaid, which causes me physical pain. But that's important, because this series is all about grand adventures and big surprises, because it's space exploration. So it all has to be a big surprise for the reader. But that was why I explained the shake-up concept of long series, because I want to convey to you the significance of the big events that happen later in the series, but without explaining exactly what they are. Now, I still want to give you a good idea of what to expect from reading this series, so I'll give you a clue of what type of plots you're likely to see. The first one is the mystery plotline. Each book has mystery, some more than others, but you will often see the big shattering revelation where it all kind of fits this complex puzzle, or the big plot twist moment. So sometimes it's a mystery of a crime, or like a big corporation has an evil plan. Other times it's just exploring the new things in space. So The Expanse is all about going
into the end.
its continuing mission
To boldly go where no one has gone before.
So sometimes the mystery element is simply, I wonder what's over there, I wonder what that thing is, I wonder what's going to happen next. Other plot lines are based around big wars, and I don't think that's a spoiler. Book 2 is literally called Caliban's War, right? It's right there in the title. The space battles here are awesome for a lot of reasons. For one, there's a lot of hard science that goes into creating greater realism. For example, there are huge distances involved. So in Star Wars, you get space battles where all the ships are just crammed together in really tight proximity, whereas space is massive, and the battles would be very spread out. It reminds me of a behind-the-scenes footage I once saw of the filming of Top Gun. So one of the pilots who flew the planes that they used in filming actually said that the combat in the film was very unrealistic. They would film long shots and sequences of one pilot chasing another, but the pilot said it was actually impossible to do that at those speeds. You'd be lucky to even glimpse your enemy for a full second before they were out of sight again. In fact, a lot of the shots you see of these chase sequences in the movie are actually pilots deliberately flying in formation and in perfect sync to each other. So realistic space battles would be more like a Navy battle. So it's a big wide space or an ocean where you're trying to find a needle in a haystack and watch their movements at a distance and track the incoming missiles, that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that realistic is automatically better for story. I mean, sometimes dramatization is very effective at storytelling.
Well, all good stories deserve embellishment.
But it is better in this sense because the battle scenes are so unique. It doesn't feel like they just copied and pasted an exact fight or battle from Star Wars or Star Trek. These battles feel different from every other action sequence you've seen, and in that sense, it's just more entertaining. One final plotline I'll mention is the adventures of James Holden and his crew aboard the Rocinante.
On my ship, the Rocinante, wheeling through the galaxies.
Again, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll put it this way. There are a lot of protagonists in the series, but James Holden is the main protagonist. So his crew become a very tight-knit team over the course of the series. A lot of the plot lines are about going into new spaces, and it's all seen through the crew's eyes. Sometimes their role in the story is exploration, sometimes it's peacekeeping missions, or even pseudo-military actions as well. Basically, they take on a different role depending on what role that story needs. This crew becomes very beloved over the course of the series, and they're all amazing characters. In fact, let's talk about that. The Expanse has been extremely well received by critics. It has won multiple awards over the last 10 years. And when critics talk about the reasons why it wins awards, one of the most common things that keep coming up is the characters. This is top-tier character writing. It's fantastic. Each character has a unique voice, a unique world perspective, and unique dialogue. They even have incredible diversity among the types of characters. So you have military, politician, religious leaders, criminals, rich and poor, emotionally healthy, emotionally unhealthy, everything and all walks of life. Even all spots on an alignment chart. I'll explain why in a second why that is special. But two of my favorite characters are the main guy, James Holden, and his partner, Amos Burton, which will surprise no one who's read the series because I think they're everyone's favorites. These two make a hell of a duo. James Holden is one of the most idealistic characters I've ever seen. He's quite a lawful good character. He's a Boy Scout. Now, usually, if a story has an idealistic character in the main position, it could be because the story is morally simple, or because the story is so morally complex it's about to ruin this lawful good character in every way imaginable. But in The Expanse, we have a good man in the lead, even in a morally complicated story. Holden is someone who knows he's a little bit naive, he knows he's idealistic, but damn it, he wants to be. He is determined to do the right thing, even if he's the only one doing it, even if it's going to cause all sorts of problems down the track. Holden is a self-aware good person in a grey world who just refuses to give up on that. And then we have his buddy Amos Burton, and how the hell do we describe this guy? I mean, there's a video called Amos Burton, the most complex character in science fiction, for good reason. He is a chaotic neutral character who is the most chaotic and the most neutral. Put it this way, Amos is not a soldier or a mercenary or a hired thug. Amos is a killer. He has no qualms about it, and he's very aware that that is what he is. But he knows that killing is not a good thing, and that's one of the reasons why he becomes so fiercely loyal to Holden, because the two form a tight friendship of trust, because Holden is a much more moral character than Amos, and can help him stay on the straight and narrow. And yet Amos has no problems getting his hands dirty if it means helping Holden's cause. So there are scenes where a bad guy is mocking Holden for being naive, and Amos just steps in to defend him.
Say that again.
Damn, Cap, be cool.
Say that again. That's what I thought. I'll be in the venue.
This is special for a few reasons. One of them is I think that most authors, when they're writing a story, they will really only represent one type of moral code. Most of their characters are mouthpieces for their own personal ideals. Occasionally you'll see different morals shown in the villains, just for contrast. But it's rare to see multiple characters in a series that all have different morals to each other. It creates a complex yet fascinating world, where everyone has different beliefs and acts on them accordingly. If 3 characters are faced with the same choice, they might all make 3 different decisions, because they all have different morals, and it makes for compelling storytelling. I'll talk about the characters a little bit more later on, because they are so integral to the plot. In fact, the 2 authors decide who's going to write what based on the characters. Because I want to talk about that, the 2 author dynamic. So in case you didn't know, James S.A. Corey is a pen name for the 2 authors who work on the series. That's Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank. The name actually comes from their 2 middle names, so Daniel James Abraham and Ty Corey Frank. The S.A. initials come from the name of Daniel's daughter. This collaboration came about because of a role-playing game. I know, it's another one of those stories that came out of a role-playing game. I should do a video on just role-playing game books. It's a weird thing, but they just keep coming up. They're everywhere. Anyway, the role-playing game was Ty Frank's idea. Ty was actually working as George R.R. Martin's personal assistant. He was also involved in the science fiction community in New Mexico, and he invented a role-playing game that was set in the solar system out in space, and that's where he met Daniel Abraham. So Daniel was already an established author at this point. He was working under the pseudonym MLN Hanover, and he wrote the Black Sun's Daughter urban fantasy. He was actually collaborating with George R.R. Martin. He was the one adapting Game of Thrones books into graphic novels. So yes, both of these authors know our old friend George. In fact, that's why George's name often appears as the praise on the front cover of the book. When Daniel encountered Ty's RPG, he was impressed by the amount of world-building detail and thought that had gone into it, and he asked permission to write a novel set in that world. And of course, Ty gave his permission, and they had an arrangement they were going to split royalties to a certain extent. But later, Daniel showed him the opening chapters, and Ty got really interested, and they decided to write it together.
I love you guys!
So in book 1, there are 2 protagonists, James Holden and Detective Miller. So all of Holden's chapters are written by Ty Frank, all of Miller's chapters are written by Daniel Abraham. The writers fell into a format where Monday to Thursday, they would write their own chapters, and then they would meet up on Friday to discuss, plan content, and edit each other's works. They say they edited each other's works so much, it got to a point where they often say they can't remember who wrote what words. So book 1 just has the 2 main protagonists, but all the other books have about 4 or more. And that's how they divide who writes what segments. So Ty Frank writes the chapters for the characters Holden, Amos, Bobby, and Anna, plus more. Daniel writes the chapters for the characters Miller, Avasarala, Naomi, and Alex. And the best part, I knew about this 2 author dynamic before I even started reading the series, and I was determined to catch them out. I wanted to find out which author was writing which segment, and you know what? It drove me crazy, because I read all 10 books and could not spot a single difference. It was infuriating. Not at any point in all of the 10 books did I notice, oh, this was the good writing, this was the bad writing, this was the better characterization, this was the worst, better world building, worse world building. No, it was just amazingly consistent quality all the way through. For whatever reason, these 2 guys have worked extremely well together, and they have managed to account for each other's weaknesses and bring out each other's strengths. Another area where The Expanse has been frequently praised is for its social commentary. The depiction of humanity spread across the planets, yet still shackled by prejudice, is filled with real-world comparisons. So Earth is very wealthy in this world, has all the resources. Mars, on the other hand, is heavily militarized, to the point where all new technology and all inventions come from Mars these days. The Martian culture is so heavily focused on innovation because that was a crucial part of their founding. Yet the Outer Planetary Alliance, they have none of that. They're still just trying to survive. In many ways, they're still newly established. A common point of tension in the characters of The Expanse is when people from Earth or Mars are just a little bit wasteful with resources. Things like they waste a little bit of air, they spill a little bit of water. But just a little bit, right? And it always drives the people from the outer planets crazy, because in the asteroid belt, if you don't shut a door properly, or you don't properly seal your suit, people die. And despite all that constant vigilance, there's still deaths pretty often in those areas. Yet the inner planets just can't fathom that level of resource poverty. The Belters are also physically different from everyone else, including the other outer planets. They grow up in much lower gravity in the asteroid belt, so their bodies develop strangely. They grow without gravity pulling them down, so they become elongated and very tall. It's very common for Belters to be 2 meters tall. They're also extra sensitive to higher gravity, so many of them are physically incapable of going to Earth because the higher gravity would be torturous on their bodies. This is something that the TV show chose not to really include because of just the sheer difficulty of constantly depicting this on screen in every shot. But think of it like Lord of the Rings, where the level of height difference, some beings are taller, some are shorter, and it's a difference that is noticeable and obvious immediately. So the Belters are almost like a different subspecies of human. They also have their own language developments. The authors went to great lengths to depict this Creole slang language that is spoken by the Belters, to show how language changes so much when separated by different colonies. Like you get Spanish as it's spoken in Spain, and then different Spanish in South America, same way you get different English from UK and US. Very normal, but it's a little bit more extreme in the Belters' case. But also the whole dynamic between inner planets and outer planets, it's not one-sided. It's not a case of Earth and Mars are the oppressors. The outer planets have a reputation for crime, disorder, uncivilized behavior. So in the Eartheners' minds, the outer planets kind of deserve a bit of poverty, like it's their own fault. But then it becomes a question of which came first, the crime or the poverty. And are they ever truly separate? Do they always go together?
He just won't stop with the social commentary.
So this world building and social commentary is significantly affected by those big shakeups we talked about earlier. And those shakeups allow us to see the social commentary explored further in a lot of different forms. Again, apologize for being vague, just dodging those spoilers. It's an ongoing, developing discussion that continues throughout the series. Like all good science fiction, The Expanse offers deep insights into what it means to be human and offers profound warnings for the future of humanity. Now, before I go on to the next segment, I just want to give it a bit of context. I said at the start that The Expanse is my favourite science fiction series. I have heard some people mock it, though, for being too action-heavy, implying that the surplus amounts of action takes away from the more deeper philosophical aspects of it. And yes, The Expanse has tons of action scenes, explosions, all sorts of cool shit. But I think action scenes can be a little bit more deeper than that, so let's talk about that. So I have two defenses for action scenes, a two-fork approach, if you will. Number one, action shapes the story. Number two, action is entertaining. So let's look at number one first. One of the best explanations of action scenes I've ever seen from YouTuber Just Right. So he did a series on The Hobbit, which if you haven't watched yet, it's amazing. It was done like 8 years ago, but it's one of the best breakdowns of The Hobbit I've ever seen. Wholeheartedly recommend. But in his second video, he talks about action scenes, and he makes the comparison that an action scene is a lot like a song in a musical. It actually doesn't matter how good the action or the song is on their own. If you could cut it from the story without changing the story, then you should cut it. I love this definition. I'd argue that a couple of other things fit the example as well, like sex scenes. So action, sex, and songs, they can all be enjoyable on their own. But remember, this is still a story, so they need to advance the story. They need to add something to the plot, to the characters, or to the romantic relationship. Otherwise, it's just opulent and gratuitous. Kind of like that sentence. In addition, whenever there's an action scene, it needs to result in something changing. There needs to be a consequence, not just to justify the action scene being there, but to actually make the action more tense. Think of it like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. If the writer goes, hey guys, there's an action scene coming up, and everyone comes running, but then nothing changes as a result, everyone's going to go home very disappointed.
Well, that was a waste of time.
And then the one time an action scene actually leads to something, no one cares anymore.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
If action scenes result in change, then the future action scenes will be more tense because we know something's about to change again. But if nothing changes, then the future action scenes become boring and kind of meaningless. Now, this is why I love the action scenes in The Expanse. Yes, there is a lot of them, but they always result in consequences. The story goes through significant periods of change every time there is an action scene. You can't cut the action scenes without changing the story, proving that they actually drive the story forward. My second defense of action scenes is that they are entertaining. In short, action scenes are fun. Now, these books are about 600 pages long on average. I'd say that that's like medium to like medium-large size for a book, so there is a bit of reading going on here. Action scenes really help to keep the reader's interest, and there's nothing wrong with trying to keep the reader's interest. I think sometimes authors should do that. But there's a strange school of thought that says if the story tries to be fun, then it means it's not being clever. Here's another example. Action scenes can be a lot like fan service. Both can be very enjoyable for a range of reasons, but if the story relies on action or fan service too much, it kind of becomes boring. That's where you get Transformers, where there's so much action it becomes utterly dull. Or the Fantastic Beasts series, where there's so much fan service to kind of distract you from the utter goofiness of the plot. So you need the Goldilocks amount of action or fan service. Not too much, not too little, just right. And this is where The Expanse really shines. There are plenty of action scenes, but you never feel like there's just one shoved in every 50 pages to hit that quota. They are fun, but the story never relies on them too much, because there are plenty of other things happening to keep you interested. So even if there's not an action scene, you will get political intrigue, mystery plots, romance, character moments, just heaps of stuff. The story doesn't have to have action, it chooses to.
Not to worry, I have a permit. This just says I can do what I want.
So in conclusion, let's not gatekeep action scenes or action-heavy books. If they help people read more books, then we should celebrate them. Remember, as always, let people read what they want to read. There's a good chunk of short fiction, short stories, and novellas in The Expanse, and they're all now available in one collection, which is Memories Legion. That one got released in 2022, a year after the final novel was released. It is damn good short fiction. This is where the writers do a lot of cool stuff, so expand on the world building, explore side characters, and even just experiment with genre. Think of them as side quests.
I'm already on a quest.
The quality of writing here is pretty damn high.
It's too damn high.
I wholeheartedly recommend all of them. One thing to note, the reading order can be a little bit tricky. So a number of them occur before the first book, or around the early period, and then a lot of them occur towards the end of the series. So pay attention to where it's set, and it's all noted at the start of each short story to give you context. Also, you do not have to read these short stories in chronological order for it to make sense. I think you can read them in just about any order you want. You can read a lot of them just after the first 2 novels, or you can read them after all the novels if you wanted. My only note, of all of the short works, I would say that Strange Dogs is about the most relevant one to the main series. You can read that one between books 7 and 8, but most are more like adding extra detail to the world rather than furthering the main plot lines. Okay, about the TV series, in typical book guy fashion, I haven't actually watched it. But I know the TV show has been a massive commercial success and critical success. It's got huge reviews, has a very devoted fandom, but is it a faithful adaptation? Well, put it this way, the authors themselves work on the TV show. So they have written a number of episodes for it as well. They fully endorse both the books and the shows. But they do also mention that they have very much adapted the story, to the point where they say that it is interesting for show watchers to read the books and vice versa, because there's enough that's different about them to make them entertaining. One doesn't spoil the other, so in short, they're both good?
Both. Both is good.
The Expanse has a great mix of 50-50 male and female characters, and this is always a great thing, but it's especially great here because of how well their characters are written, regardless of their gender. And so continuing our discussion of characters from earlier, let's look at some of the women and look at some of the quotes to give you an idea of how great they are. First of all, we have Avasarala, the foul-mouthed political leader who does not take crap from anyone. Her quote is, "The generals, they're all f***ing men. I thought Souther was the only... I don't mean that they all f*** men, I mean they're all men, the f***ers." Quite literally one of my most favourite quotes of all time. Her other quote is, "My life has become a single ongoing revelation that I haven't been cynical enough." Amazing. Next we have Bobby Draper. She's a soldier, a warrior, and all-around badass. She says, "I don't use sex as weapons. I use weapons as weapons." And Naomi Nagata. She's a Belter woman of mixed heritage, a spaceship engineer, and a major character of the series. She says, "The universe never tells us if we did right or wrong. It's more important to try to help people than to know you did. More important that someone else's life gets better than for you to feel good about yourself. I also love that 2 male authors have worked so hard to include great female representation. It proves it's possible for male authors to do that. You see, I once met a certain fantasy author in person who shall remain nameless. He was giving an interview, and I remember him saying, "The most common question I'm asked is, why don't I include more badass women in my books?" Well, here's the thing. Writers have to write what they know, and this may shock you, but I have never been a girl. Everyone laughed, and the interview moved on. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there just shaking my head, thinking that this author has written characters who were wizards, princes, demigods, dictators, mercenaries. Even though he'd never been any of them, hell, he'd probably never even met one of them, but we assumed that he'd at least met a woman, so why could he not write a woman? Because he'd never been one? Anyway, The Expanse is proof to me that it's possible for male authors to write female characters very well, without being problematic or using tokenism or being just plain cringe about it. It proves that it's a reasonable thing to expect. The Expanse also represents race very well, as you've probably picked up by now, based on the whole social commentary part, but it's really well done. And so, to put it this way, and to add greater context, I did this whole series by audiobook, which will explain why I've once again used the paper display, because I don't own the physical books. But I did it on audio because I know that The Expanse was considered one of the best audiobook productions, and I wholeheartedly agree. The narrator is the amazing Jefferson Mays, who is a Tony Award-winning actor, and Mr. Mays does so many accents for this series. I don't think I've ever heard this many accents from one audiobook. It was like listening to Robin Williams do impersonations.
Helium would be good if you had a helium-powered car. You'd know if there's a gas leak, because all of a sudden you'd be like this.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, you bastard, you rear-ended me.
So I hope that detail conveys just how many races are represented on screen here. The Expanse has characters from affluent, wealthy backgrounds who grew up in stable families, access to education, never wanted for anything. And then there are characters who grew up on the street, orphaned, homeless, driven to crime at a young age. This happens a lot, to a point where I would say that classism is a major theme of The Expanse. There's excellent rep for LGBT characters as well, consistently through the series and from all parts of the rainbow. One thing I love about it is there's no real prejudice towards the LGBT community in The Expanse, yet there's also a ton of prejudice in The Expanse. So it proves that the focus of prejudice has shifted away from LGBT and more towards planetary prejudice. I really like this. It shows how in every culture, in different countries and different points in history, prejudice will change based on each society. You will always have those people, that group over there who is the feared and the outcast ones. In some societies, they fear gay people. In others, they fear refugees, for example. It's a part of the human condition, unfortunately, to always look at the outsiders and then try really hard to keep them as outsiders. But it's represented very well here. So there's a wee little bit of horror in The Expanse. Not a lot, but it shows up from time to time, such as the prologue of the very first book has a horror instance in it. Some of the short stories often delve into horror as well, and that's the great thing about science fiction. It so naturally blends with other genres. So The Expanse dabbles into a lot of subgenres. I do just think that the horror subgenre needs a little bit of a warning. There's a decent amount of action violence, so things like people getting really messed up by big future weapons and big guns, that sort of thing. There's a decent amount of swearing as well, as you probably guessed from that Avasarala quote. But yes, Avasarala is known to swear a lot. In the TV show, I do know that they tone it down just a little bit, but in the books, they turn it up a lot. It's kind of glorious. They even address why. Her whole thing is that she's one of the few women leaders, so she deliberately swears a lot to shock people, to prove that she doesn't really care what they think. And one more content warning, just for the heavy, mature themes. So things like resource hoarding, exploitation, social justice issues, that kind of thing. So the series is finished now. The final novel is Leviathan Falls, and there is one novella in Memory's Legion that takes place just a little bit after the final book as a sort of extra epilogue, if you will. But yes, it's all done now, totally finished, and I can 100% confirm, yes, the ending is worth it. One thing to note here, there is a general belief among some fans that books 4, 5, 6 are the boring books. If you look at them as trilogies, you would say that the middle trilogy is the weakest of the three. already. It's not a slump like you get in The Wheel of Time, they're just slower books. Less epic, less action heavy, and a little bit deeper and more philosophical and political. I can kind of see this point. I mean, I do know I personally took a break halfway through book 6 where I paused the series and came back to it later. But to be clear, no one says these are bad books. I don't think there's any sort of drop in quality. On Goodreads, the scores are pretty consistent. But I thought I should just give you a heads up that some of the fandom say that there's a dip here. Good news, Book 1 is fantastic from the start. Book 1 is an excellent example. Leviathan Wakes is a great book, won tons of awards, and starts the series at a very strong point. So read Book 1, you'll know right away if this series is right for you and if it's worth for you reading to the end. Now, good luck and happy reading. So that's it. That was my introduction to The Expanse, and I hope I've convinced you to give this one a go, and I hope you love it as much as I have. Now, we're over halfway through Sci-Fi September, and we've got 2 more outings to go. We're doing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy next week, and finishing off with Red Rising. I'm frantically reading Lightbringer at the moment, so I can get ready for it in time. But that's coming up soon. I'm excited to say the monthly theme thing has gone really well. We've seen a lot more activity on my channel, and we have just hit 3,000 subscribers, which is wonderful. Thank you all. So, because it's worked so well, we're going to do one more monthly theme and see if it works well again. So I'm excited to announce we've done Sci-Fi September, so you can bet it's going to be double alliteration. We're going to do Old School October. So for Old School October, we are going to look at classic fantasy from roughly the period of the 50s through to the 80s and 90s-ish. And I am going to put up a poll, and you can vote for it in the coming weeks, but I have a funny feeling we're going to start with Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so stick around. Now, please subscribe if you haven't already. Consider sharing this video or any of my others with a friend to help convince more people to give reading a go. If you can support the channel through our shop, Rainbow Space Unicorn. And always remember that you are a badass, and I encourage you, be brave enough to be kind. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.